In today's video, I'm going to show you how to maintain the stitch pattern used in my new design for the cattail cardigan. As you can see, this textured pattern here increases out this way, but the pattern itself is maintained throughout the stripe. It's actually worked from the top down, so let me show you this way. So if you look on this side, as the V-neck increases out this way, the stitch pattern still lines up, even though there's extra stitches here and here. Same thing on this side. So I'm just going to show you right now with my sample that I've been working on of the pattern. So if you look at the pattern here, it is a 4-stitch pattern repeat with 2 stitches worked in, well, the pattern's created on the wrong side, but you can see it on the right side. So if you want to see a video on how to create the pattern, you can check out part 1 of the cattail stitch pattern. So if you look at this pattern, you can see that the yarn overs wrap these 2 stitches on this row. Then there are 2 plain stitches worked and stuck in it, and then there's a wrap here. Let's see if I can use this, and then 2 plain stitches. Now on the alternate wrong side rows, you can see that the wrap comes and wraps these 2 stitches right here. So we call this pattern an offset pattern because even though rows 1 and 2 are worked exactly like rows 3 and 4, rows 3 and 4 are offset by 1 stitch, and then we go back on rows 5 and 6 to working the same 2 stitches wrapped together so that they stack alternately on top of one another. So on the following wrong side rows, we're going to be wrapping, again, we wrapped this stitch here and this up here, but on the next wrong side row, we're going to wrap these 2 stitches. Okay, but before we do that, we're going to increase a stitch right here as if we were working on the edge of our neckline. Okay, so the right side rows of this pattern are worked just in plain old stockinette stitch, so that means on the right side rows you're just going to knit, and I am going to do a make 1 right increase. So I'm going to work my 1 stitch selvage, and then I'm going to work my make 1 right. So I'm going to lift the needle. I'm going to take the needle, let's do this, and take the left hand needle and scoop up the running thread in between from the back, and then I'm going to knit through the front to create that 1 stitch selvage, that make 1, and then I'm just going to knit right across. So this is going to simulate what we're going to do with our neckline. I just want to make sure that these 2 stitches are separated. And this is a single ply yarn, so it's a little, it runs a little thick and thin, so I just want to make sure that I'm just grabbing that 1 stitch. I'm going to work my way across. Just knitting across till we get to the end. And I'm going to turn, and this is where all the action for this pattern happens, on the wrong side. So I'm going to work my knit one selvage stitch. And then I'm going to read my work because this pattern is pretty easy to look at, but you have to be able to read your work. So if I look at my work right now, I see that directly underneath here, I can see that I wrapped these 2 stitches on the needle. The previous rows, if you can see that. See that little wrap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to wrap these 2 stitches to maintain the pattern. So if you look, this wrap is 4 rows below, and since it's a 4-row repeat, that means I'm going to repeat this row here. So I've got to wrap this stitch. So the way to do that is with the yarn over. So I'm going to start with the yarn over. I'm going to purl 2, and then I'm going to pass this yarn over those 2 stitches, and I'm going to purl the next 2. I'm just going to check my work to just make sure that it looks the way it's supposed to and that the pattern stitches are lining up. So I can see now here that the pattern stitches are lining up. You can see I have a wrap down here and I have a wrap here 4 rows up, so the 5th row would be the wrap. Okay, so I'm just going to carry on the same way. Oops, see if I can get untwisted here. I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to purl 2. I pass the yarn over, and then I'm going to purl 2, yarn over, purl 2, yarn over, purl 2. Oops. Did I forget to wrap that? Yes, I did. So let me go back. Purl 2. Purl 2, yarn over, purl 2, pass the yarn over, purl 2, without the wrap, yarn over, purl 2 with the wrap, and then wrap that, pass that over, and then purl 2, yarn over, 2, take the yarn over and pass it over the pearls, and purl 2. Now you can see we have 2 stitches to do a yarn over and purl 2, but this stitch is a selvage stitch, which means we only really have 1 working stitch, because this stitch is going to either be picked up in the seam of the sweater or it's going to be picked up in a button band. That's what a selvage is for, so I don't interfere with the pattern. Since I only have that 1 stitch, I am not going to wrap that 1 stitch. So even though I'm supposed to go yarn over, knit 2, I really only have knit 1 left. So I really can't do that. So what I have to do is I just have to forget about the yarn over and just purl that stitch, do my knit 1 selvage, and then let's take a look and see what that's like. So that looks good. The pattern's lining up. All right, now we're going to do another knit row, but we're going to make one on this side, which is going to make things a little bit trickier for us, but still very important in learning how to read your work. So let's go ahead and do the right side row of the pattern, which is just knitting. So we're just going to knit across. the pattern. So if you're an experienced knitter, or if you're even starting out, you know that being able to read your work is a skill. When you're starting out, it's hard to look, but my suggestion for you, if you're new, is to really do a row and then take a good look at it to see what you think. What's going on there? Try to think about your knitting. Knitting is a thinking person's activity, and the more you think about it, the better your knitting will get. So right here, I'm going to make a knit one left before that selvage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my needle from front to back, and then I'm going to knit into the back of the stitch. Do that. And then I'm going to knit one right here. Okay, and I'm going to turn around, right, and we're going to take a look at our pattern before we turn it over. So right now we can see that these two, this is the selvage stitch. This is the knit stitch that the make one that I just created, this second stitch right here. And then you can see that the next two stitches on the needle, if you look down far enough right here, have been wrapped. Okay, what that means now is when we turn this over to work the wrong side row, we're going to have to do the knit one selvage, which is just something I like to do. It keeps the edge really flat. But then when we start, this was the extra stitch, that one single extra stitch that we created. If we turn it over, we could see that if there were two stitches here, it would have to be wrapped, because this stitch right here, see if I can see it better, these two stitches right here were wrapped, which means that this section right here should be wrapped. But we only have one stitch, just like we only had one stitch on the previous row. So we're going to purl that stitch. Then if we take a look, we shouldn't wrap these two stitches because they were just wrapped on the previous rows. So we're going to purl those stitches as well. And now we're going to start our pattern. So we're going to go yarn, so because we're alternating purl 2 with yarn over purl 2. Since we just did the purl 2 with that one extra stitch, which we couldn't wrap because it wasn't a set, we're going to purl yarn over and then purl 2. And we're going to do a few stitches, and we're going to just check to make sure it's working out. We'll just do a set of 4 stitches. It's a 4-stitch repeat. We're going to turn it over to see if it is looking like it's supposed to. And it is looking like it's supposed to. So as you see, you can see every 4th row they're being wrapped. Here's the wrap, here's the wrap, here's the wrap, here's the wrap. And here, since this is the wrap, we're getting the wrap right here, right there. So that's perfectly lined up with where it's supposed to be. So I'm just going to finish this row while I finish out this video. Now, in the cattail cardigan, this goes on for the entire neckline. So as you work, you will it will become intuitive to you where you really should be. But it is important for you to actually be able to read that work that you're doing. to keep the pattern maintained. In each section, the cardigan's constructed from the top down contiguously, which means that the shoulder construction and the sleeve construction and the front are all happening at the same time. And I give you a chart for each size to make it a little bit easier for you to follow how to do that. It really is a fun knit. One of the things that made it fun for me is also this particular stitch pattern, because it gives you, it's only 10 rows for each stripe, and it really does give you a beautiful finish to those stripes and makes the knitting interesting. It breaks up the 18-row stripes of stockinette stitch in the pattern. So here's the end. We wrapped this one. You can see the wrap right here. We wrapped this one, and then we're just going to purl one and then do the knit one selvage. So we're just going to see that this pattern lines up. And it really does look beautiful. It really does create a beautiful finish. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Just remember that you can see how the pattern's supposed to line up. It's only 4 stitches and only 4 rows. But it's a really fun pattern. I hope you'll give it a try. Again, the name of the pattern for the cardigan is Cattail. It's a cardigan. It has a single button closure. The shoulders are constructed in one piece with the back and the front, and then the sleeves just continue on, so that you really do not have any seaming to do at all in this cardigan. All right, enjoy. Thank you.